Welcome back, one and all. It is Tuesday morning, and that means we have the Paladins Minor League for you to start off the day. I'm Dolson to host the desk. We have another special guest with me today. We have Kresnik back on the desk with us today. Did a great job yesterday. We're excited for some more hard-hitting, deep, insightful facts coming out of you today. I'm just going to set you up on the highest pedestal possible.
Oh, I'm going to completely collapse if you do that. I would avoid that as to the most you can.
No. You did a great job yesterday. We're excited to have you back here today. And we had kind of actually just talked about this a minute ago. We're back in the minor league, and I know you played with Bork actually in the past. So yes. You have now, we're kind of back in your world a little bit. Let's take a quick look at the standings here before we jump into the matches here today. Over on the European side of things, Sour Team in the lead, well, technically tied for the lead with Penta, previously Clown Fiesta, now Penta Esports. Congrats to them on picking up the organization. 6-1 and 13 map differential. And then honestly, a mirror down below, 1-6 and minus 13 map differential. And today we have some 1 versus 2 teams and some 3 versus 4 teams. So it'll be exciting, I think, to see how some of this plays out.
Yeah, I agree. These games look like these are the best games I think could come out of EU PML. Yeah. You know, the two top teams, really close. The 2 bottom teams, probably really close. Last matchup wasn't so close, but things have changed. Characters are unbanned, characters are rebanned. We're going to see exactly how that affects it.
And you mentioned this as well. There's, kind of meta shifting going on. A couple new champions get introduced. We've seen how some of the teams have performed in the past, but there's lots of change going on in the minor league up to this point. To start off the day, we have All Business versus the Blazing Hussars, and we saw in the standings there, they're 1-6 with a minus 13 map differential. So this is really a match that's going to decide sort of who overjumps who. You literally could not be any closer. You're tied up here. Looking at the All Business side of things, we look at, Hussars, we look at Toot on their lineup and the frontline presence that he brings. How important is it in your eyes to have a frontliner who's, I guess, flexible? Toot is one of those guys. He can play the Inara, he can play the Ashe. Having flexibility in the front line is important. What does that sort of bring to a team?
It's really important, I think, in recent metas because, you look at the bans on average across recent games. How often do you see 4 tanks banned? 3 tanks banned? You don't know what you're going to have to come out with. And Toot is a player who I know has played DPS in the past. He's flexible across all these multiple roles, being able to play anything the game gives him. Nando, Khan, and R, like we've already seen in these highlights. It's important in this high tank ban meta.
Especially, again, with Atlas coming out now, that just throws one more wrench into the mix for a lot of these frontliners. So he's somebody I think that they're going to look at to hopefully lean on today and get some good play out of him. Let's flip to the opposite side. Another frontliner. We have William Birkin on the All Business side of things in this case. And yet again, I think he has sort of a similar role to fill as Toot does in that, well, the bans are kind of wide and far here for the frontliner. So you have another guy in William Birkin, who will hopefully be making a difference in this case. You have a team that's sort of had a tough road of things. Is that sort of where you look at some frontline play to hopefully push things forward? It's kind of a tried and true position. Is that sort of somewhere that you look to maybe get some things going in your favor?
Yeah, if your tanks aren't there, not in the right position, not surviving what they need to survive, then it doesn't really matter what your DPS is and your supports are doing,
Right.
Your support maybe can carry a front line through a bad positioning mistake with good healing, but they have to be able to react to, I'm alive now, what am I going to do now? What cooldowns am I going to use? Do I pop ult here to get through it? It really is a lot of pressure on the front lines in all the metas in this game.
Quite literally putting your best foot forward in this case, and that's what William Birkin will look to do here today as well. He's had some great plays. We've seen Nara, Khan, Barrack out of him, so another guy just like Toot who will look to remain flexible and hopefully find one of these 2 teams a win here today. Bright Marsh is where we're headed for map number 1. Frog Isle, Timber Mill, Jag Falls, Splitstone, all banned out here. What sort of compositions? We saw a little bit yesterday in the PCL. What sort of a play style do you look for on a map like Bright Marsh?
Bright Marsh, it's a map where you could be a little more flexible. Yeah. It's flat. It doesn't have as much pressure on vertical mobility, so you don't need to guarantee that you have that like Maeve, Androxus, Imani even nowadays is also being able to be used on those like high ground rotations. I'm actually, I was like, wow, they didn't ban Talus. After coming in from yesterday, but pretty standard stuff. Double off tank ban coming in from Hussars on first pick. Makoa Torv, All Business, just wants to get rid of the OP things.
We already mentioned, we were like, you got to be flexible on the front line immediately. 4 frontline bans gone, and Atlas, one of the higher priority, if not the highest priority champions that we saw in the PPL, and then even some into the PTL yesterday, coming in here yet again, and then Genos as well. And he sort of had a rise to the top here over the past few weeks. Genos has, as far as healers go, so not surprising to see him and Barrack come out as well.
Yeah, taking Barrack with him, I mentioned it yesterday, but it is smart. You know, you want to get the best tank with your Genos. You don't want to kind of get locked out, get stuck with the Inara. Maybe you're like, oh, we need a Pip now.
I will fight to protect the sanctity of the wild.
Yeah. But, you know, maybe they don't want to get shoehorned into that kind of composition that quickly.
Hussars will get the Inara on the opposite side, as well as the Pip. And I know Pip has also become sort of one of those fringe picks that's sort of actually shoehorned his way into the meta almost. I mean, not the most common champion pick, but one that provides enough utility to make any game interesting. We like to say that, you know, a good Evil Mojo can flip a fight on its head, even if you're losing in this case. So really strong pick here from the Hussars.
Hard to kill. He's really hard to kill. Moxie is the biggest thing. That card in his loadout gives him that 50% rejuve, which directly counters caught. His potion heals him for 1800 if he's uncaughted with Moxie trigger.
That's a lot of healing.
It's a lot of healing, and even if he's caught 3'd, it's gonna still heal him for like 40% of the potion value. So it's just really hard to dive onto. Furia Pip.
Furia really Pip, yeah, actually. Talk to me a little bit about the Furia, because we saw Furia in the PPL a few times. I think it was Virtus Pro, or maybe Na'Vi, who pulled out Furia a little bit. What are your thoughts on her as a healer right now?
She's a feast or famine kind of healer, right? You're either going to hit every beam, you're going to be like, oh my god, Furia is the best character in the game. Why haven't we been her every game? And then you play the next game and you miss 5 beams in a row and you're like, well, we just got 0-4. We're going to need to rethink this. But Furia Pip is a really big sustain comp. They got rid of the Cassie, so they don't have the big game to burst through tanks. Atlas has Rewind to sustain, and Inara has her DR. I'm expecting them to maybe wait patiently, try to live through the initial dive, and then refight once they've rehealed.
Well, they got a lineup that they'll be happy with. We're about to dive into game number 1, so let's send it down to the casters.
This is looking pretty good. Pretty scary. Little switch-ups, though, early on. I mean, the Furia is something I think Spunky's run a little bit at this point through the Premier League, but overall, it's something that we really haven't seen much of.
It's still very much in that like proof of concept phase where it's just like, okay, does she still work at the level that she was working at before? Is it going to be as strong, maybe a little weaker? And that's, I think, really for all business to kind of exploit. Can they take care of Inara? It's actually something that at this point you should be used to. How do you deal with an Inara Furia? You got a few months of practice on that one.
Absolutely, and nothing much has changed with Furia, at least in the core talent that she runs is still most of the time Solar Blessing, right?
I think next update she's actually getting a buff overall for her range on her healing just to make sure that she can kind of keep up.
There it is. Deja Vu will be the chosen talent for Kamika's Atlas. Everything else fairly standard. Mother's Grace, little big game, little Solar Blessing, Catalyst for Pip. Wormjets is the choice here. Everything else fairly standard for those selections. Couple of cauterizers and a little wrecker for Grafis.
And swapping over to combustible right before leaving there for Closar. So not looking at much around flying around the map, which admittedly for Bright Marsh isn't something you're going to do as often anyway. We've seen that playstyle, but more looking for the not only knock around, but just amount of damage you can get onto the point from playing the window just like this.
Wants to be able to put that pressure on Inara for sure. Duly contesting now, nobody really capturing or making any progress at this point. Both fighting for the high ground here. Coriel doing his best to box out against Pip, but the early game sustain is definitely tough. As you can see, Pip just tops himself right back up to full HP.
I mean, it's just so strong. And that's going to be Moxie for you, honestly. Just going to keep you going as long as you can. You can see Moxie 5. If you're not running this in a Pip loadout, you're playing him wrong. And that's really what it comes down to. He keeps himself alive so well. And that 50% increased healing doesn't have to come from you, but it certainly makes your 1v1s way easier, and it also means that this boxing match, you can do that. You get the full reset, and you can pop the shield and potentially pressure out the rockets.
Affects your lifesteal, affects your healing potion, all kinds of good stuff. Finally, first blood will fall, and it's the all-business squad that are managing to grab that one. Blazing Hussars lose their support. They lose their front line quickly thereafter. But they were slightly in the lead on the objective, but the way this fight is being staggered out now, one after the other, until it's a 5-0. All business looks like they're poised to take this first objective.
And if I remember correctly, the last time these two came against each other, it ended up being a 3-0 for Blazing Hussars to be able to take that win. So going back and forth, I think both of these teams have taken a win off of each other. So it's going to come down to this one to kind of give you that foot forward. And at this point, because they're both -13 in the standings, give someone the actual third place title.
Oh no, Hexfire comes out here, but Coriel is largely behind a tree. When he pops it, he's getting very aggressive, and Grafies is able to quickly push him to the side and deal with that. Big game Cassidy, one of the better answers to Ruckus in the current meta. But Ruckus is definitely, despite, again, the funny thing about Ruckus is, I don't remember the last time he was really buffed or nerfed in any way. I think his rockets maybe got buffed after they came out. And he got the rework to get the rocket talent when everybody else was getting new talents and things like that. But he's just come and gone in the meta without seeing any major changes in such a long time.
And it's just that area of what is going to be strongest right now. And when it comes down to a 2 frontline kind of meta, which we've shifted back into, he fills that role of, we need someone who's going to be tanky but aggressive, that can buy us room, but isn't going to die immediately. In a triple DPS, he's just a really thick DPS, right? So it's just,
Agreed.
He does exactly what you want him to do in this role. Like, I'd say out of everyone on the on the roster of Paladins, Ruckus is probably the quintessential aggro tank.
He's an
Whereas
aggro frontliner,
Ash is like
but
the other version.
they have without any utility, right? He does the most damage of the aggro tanks, but he has little to no utility. All he does is move around the map and do damage, kind of like if Victor were a tank. But when you look at Khan and Ash, they have such great point ultimate, overpowers their dominance. I mean, it's tough, definitely, to forgo that type of stuff.
I mean, kind of now throwing his name into the basket. It's going to be Atlas there. Just one of the things, like, not only the rewinds, keeping himself alive, his self-sustained, being able to set back the entire team, just like you see right there. But also this gun, which is just, it's 900 damage no matter when you're going to hit it. You don't have to charge the shot fully, but being able to snipe out all of a sudden a Drogoz and a Leon, but also run face-to-face with a Barrack and shotgun blast him if you want to, like that kind of utility is something you don't get as much out of Ruckus. I'm curious to see if it's going to make a huge difference for this game.
18 seconds on this offense left. Not a ton of ultimates have come out in the intermediate phases of this round, so maybe looking to hold on. Now the team feeling good or necessarily bad about their offense or defense. A little setback comes out onto William Birkin, but he's actually happy to get back into that spot. And Kresnik was talking about yesterday that, you know, that's a character, if you're not careful, Atlas can help your enemies.
Yeah. You rewind them, maybe they get away, maybe you rewind yourself out of there, but a lot of the time you could set them up to be either in a better position to chase down your teammates or in a position where they just get out of the fight. So you have to be very careful. That's one of the things I think that comes through with not only Deja Vu, but using Rewind. Hitting multiple people, you never truly know where they're going to end up. So you have to be very cognizant of what kind of scenario you're putting your team into.
Ineffable is playing a lockdown Leon right now. This is really, really good stuff from him. Out in front of even his combustible Drogoz, who typically is a character that is constantly just churning out damage. Poke damage for the most part, but damage nonetheless. 2-0 for Closar, 7-1 for Ineffable. Nobody really has a ton of dive. And despite the Ruckus, despite the Atlas being played very passive, there's not much aggression happening on either side of the battlefield.
I mean, it says a lot when Anara has the most kills on Blazing Hussars, right? Like, that's one of those things, like, Toot Toot is a great player, but there's not much of a reason for it, and that's just how passive the game has been so far. With Evil Mojo available, with the Exiles available for Atlas, I expect maybe a couple more kills, maybe a little more pressure to be applied here. It's now Furia, of all people, going to be the first one to fall once again.
It's up over the top of these roofs. A little poke from Leon, and Drogoz just moves to capitalize. Dragon Punch is ready. But I don't even think All Business are going to need it. They're looking very, very strong right now. That's a 4-for-1, 5-for-0 last round, so not much of an improvement for Blazing Hussars.
I mean, that's just clean. They pretty much do the exact same thing they did in round 1 for All Business, except they do it a little faster. It didn't take them as long to get to that first blood, but they are able to push as hard as they want. Now all of a sudden you're stuck in this position. Yeah, you have Inflame out. You're going to be able to move in a little faster, and that was a good shot from Grafies. Otherwise, you have no chance, but they still lose 2 members.
There it is. Ineffable finds the triple. Goes into the enlightenment so he doesn't get stunned out by the crash. A beautiful play from Ineffable as the overtime starts and is going to end in favor of All Business.
That is one of those moments where you see the impact a single champion can have when it's like, cool, I killed your Drogoz when he was ulting. I was able to follow up with a couple more kills. Or our Drogoz was killed while he was ulting. I killed your Cassie, your Atlas, your Pip, and then everyone was just kind of left at that point to see who falls. No one on Blazing Hussar seems to have an answer for this Leon.
2-11 now to get this offense pushed through. Not a lot of progress made last time every ultimate is pop there when it's all said and done. So despite that, All Business still stay in control of this objective. If they get this Inara here, they're going to be in a much better spot to get this offense going. Setback actually doesn't connect with Ineffable there. Atlas is Void Gripped up and slain. Ineffable is just rocking and rolling. Angedoodle cannot get anything with a dive. Furia is just committing suicide onto the payload at this point.
Now Inara respawns. Furia 10 seconds behind everyone else, but I mean, this is looking like it should be good, clean control. Exactly what you want. It's going to be whether or not Coriel can get up there. He's just going to be laying in wait for someone to jump down. They're not going to notice the ruckus right behind him, and because of that, Toot Toot is going to take a lot more damage from behind than I think he wanted to. He's not firing.
He doesn't want these tanks. He wants one of these squishies to jump down. Now he likes what he sees. He's going to go ahead and go in. Now that he's been noticed, called out. Both frontliners dead.
Wow.
All Business convert. Quick offense there. They seem to have figured out this could be less than a 10-minute game if this continues to go the same way.
And that was, I mean, patience in the right sense, right? Where it's just like, I'm going to sit here and I'm going to make sure that you are in the right scenario. I mean, he holds fire. No one sits there and thinks, cool, there's a guy in front of me I can shoot. I'm not going to in this game. But Coriel holds on to every single shot, does not fire a single thing, doesn't move until he's sure, cool, we can kill Inara and Atlas. We can get this push if we kill the two front lines, or a squishy target jumps
Take
down.
a look at this Leon loadout here and run me through these nerfs a little bit, Gore. Heraldry seeing a nerf to reduction. What do you expect to change in this loadout in the next patch?
Honestly, I'm wondering if Heraldry is still going to be run at level 5, because it's one of the, it's getting a nerf to its reduction so that when, essentially the way it was put was, if you're in a 1v1, you're not going to get almost an instant reset just for hitting one of your abilities, so you can, you know, get a clean 1,600 damage in one fight. It's going to make it a little more difficult, so maybe on grouped up maps this will be a little more potent for you, but for a lot of this scenario you're still going to be looking at just how can I kill you as fast as possible, maybe even switching talents.
I'd be curious to see. I definitely want to. I think Precision has maybe a little bit of undiscovered value.
So,
and I know I don't think it was working as intended on when it released. So now that it's like all fixed up, buffed up, ready to go, maybe we'll see it played here. All Business struggling though, losing 2 for 1, excuse me. With the comeback mechanic enabled for Blazing Hussars, this is looking like could be a tough take back here. Evil Mojo's ready. You've got the Exile, Seismic Crash. A lot of things ready to go for Blazing Hussars. They're going to start popping them. Seismic Crash comes through. There's the Evil Mojo on to Barrick. Can he make it out alive? Resilience says yes, he can. 1 for 1 so far.
And he's going to be able to get the touch again. Overtime's still going right now, but it's going to be 2 for 1 as they trade out. Now the pressure is on Ineffable. Not going to be able to make it out of that one. And Blazing Hussars keep themselves in this game just a little bit longer. Potentially able to tie it up right here if they want to. It's All Business. I want to say maybe drop the ball a little bit on that one, but also Blazing Hussars, like they've been holding these ults essentially for a full round now. So having them finally come out.
I think though Angedoodle's dive is not the prettiest thing and he doesn't get out alive, I think it still gets a lot of value. I think he pushes one person out of position. Leon tries to dive and assist. She's forced to miss the Enlightenment as well. Everyone is pulled very, very far back out of their positions to try and pressure out this little Volpine. And because of that, I think it's worth it.
And you're seeing the glory that is the sustain comp that Blazing Hussars have picked up. Like Inara, there's a point where it's like, cool, she's almost dead. We don't have to worry about this. A Furia Beam and a Pip Potion landed on her at once, and she was instantly full health. There was no way for All Business to pressure her out and get her off the point, whereas Barrick, I mean, you saw what happened. He comes in, his first bowling ball shield gets melted, his health bar gets melted, he gets turned into a chicken. He barely escapes through all of that. The fact that he lived through that for another 10, 15 seconds was impressive on the side of All Business. But you just don't have that same ability to kill the front line against Blazing Hussars.
Quick little setback here. Another beam comes through. Inara's going to be just fine from that. Switching targets now to Atlas. He rewinds as well. Everyone's got a second chance except for Barrick. William Birkin goes down. Ruckus nobly dives onto the objective to try and keep himself alive. But the Furia Beams just providing too much sustain here. Toot Toot very healthy, very happy. He's going to go ahead and frag out everybody else who's left to contest his payload and slam it on home.
And that was the perfect timing to kill Closar. Like a half second later, they're still in overtime right now. Just getting him before Barrick drops down and creating a little bit more trouble. Ineffable went from what I actually think was 14-1 to 14-5. He just did not pick up that many kills this last round. So that Leon, that I want to say was game-changing for All Business for the first 2 rounds. Not able to do too much there, whereas the things that made that last round so strong for Blazing Hussars, Evil Mojo, as well as just having Inara, having Surets alive with their ults, it gives them such clean control over a point.
That's the scary thing about these comps that have a lot of sustain is you give them an inch and they can take a mile because they never run out of gas.
Yeah.
Like they're always having healing to keep everybody topped up. If you start to lose people left and right, you might not, especially with Genos. We've talked about the type of healer he is. You just can't keep up and you just can't recover once you get behind on sustain. Now Barrick being very careful about how he approaches this, especially how to contest that Furia beam. It's a delicate dance that Barrick must do.
And that's one of those interesting things. Even with Cauterize 3, trying to kill Tutu when he's under that beam just means nothing. Like, it's just not going to get you any of the pressure you want. And because of that, Ineffable, his damage almost means nothing for this fight. Him and Closar both getting taken down. The chicken's coming through. Coriel gets away. But I just don't think it's enough.
Doodle with another very valuable dive, gets Ineffable on the Leon, almost scores a kill on a Ruckus, but what he does do is pull Ruckus away from the objective for a time, allow Blazing Hussars to kind of group up, restabilize, and make sure they can take control of this map. You can see 72% in climbing now. All Business were all in control through the first half, which is pretty weird against a sustained control comp like this Blazing Hussars lineup, but now that we've hit the late game, it's kind of flipped back and forth. This is the last chance for All Business. They're making it count here. A lot of kills coming through. Angelo looks like he might be able to pick one up, and he does.
Good shots so far from the Pip. Now you have to get rid of this Leon. Goes for the rewind. Doesn't matter. She's in the alignment. CC immune, but you still find the kill. And now it's going to be a 3v5. And without Genos getting a kill right there, Andrew Doodle's free reign.
There it is. Big headshots coming out onto Barrick. Throws down the shield to make sure he can stay safe. Kamaker, 15 streak on his Atlas, gets the inflame as well. Doodle bouncing around in the back line here. 99 to 99. It's a flip-flop applesauce as Blazing Hussars grab the first game.
I'm really glad you pointed it out, though, because that was like the inverse of what a game should be. Sustain comps are really strong for the first 2 rounds, then Cauterize 3 comes online, and that's when they're supposed to stop. But Furia Beam does not care about your Cauterize, and because of that, Inara is just like, cool, full health.
I always think of it this way. You know, the beam's like 6,000 HPS or something, so when you Cauterize at 90%, it's less than 600, which is a Ying ult, which is still something you don't want to fight into, guys. That does it for game number 1. Let's get it back to the desk and hear their thoughts.
We talked coming into today about how closely these teams would be matched, and game number 1 was no exception. 3-3. It was a pretty quick 4-3. I think it was a 14, 15-minute 4-3. I guess in the grand scheme of things, that's kind of middle of the road as it goes. We talked about Furia being feast or famine. Would you say that was a feasting Furia in that last game?
I think they played around it really, really well. They had to get to that late game. Once they did, because of the way that All Business's comp sustains with the Barrick, Ruckus, personal shields and everything, plus Genos, once late game gets on, right, All Business has caught 3. Blazing Hussars are starting to get their wreckers. Their sustain isn't as strong anymore.
That's
but
true.
the Solar Blessing on an Inara, you're not burning through that. You have to Dragon Punch that, or there's nothing else you can really do. You can't caught Atlas's rewind either.
We were kind of taken aback. I remember Tutu was just kind of hanging on the point, and then his health bar melted, but immediately it was topped off in this case. But the Hussars, they're the ones who snagged the win here. Doodle's the guy who's going to do it. I remember last week, you weren't with us here on the desk, but Doodle was doing a lot of the healing. I think Surets maybe was subbed out for the week. I don't remember exactly what was happening there. So sort of playing a hybrid dank.
He's a pretty good player. He's pretty dank.
He is pretty dank. Damage healer role in this case, and he makes the Pip look pretty good. A couple good evil mojos in this case. And I think Doodle will be happy that he's kind of gone back to a role, maybe where he feels a little bit more comfortable. So the Hussars grab the 3-0 the last time these two meet, and they're off to a 1-0 start here today, but they're not going to go down easy, are All Business. Let's get into map number 2 here. Serpent Beach is where we're headed, and that's sort of a similar play style, a lot more high ground, low ground, I would say, on a map like Serpent Beach. Would you agree? What sort of play styles are more conducive on this map?
It's a lot more about taking the enemy high ground. Well, it depends on what your comp wants to do, right? But the thing is, going on point on this map is a little bit riskier because it's so much more open.
Right.
Like on Bright Marsh, you're on the point. You know there's like 2 ways they can see you, maybe 3 if they're playing in the window. But on Serpent Beach, if you're on the point, you can see everything.
Right.
And you can get flanked really easily. There's a completely isolated flank route.
Right.
So point tank's a little harder, but high mobility is a lot more important on this map.
And we do see Atlas and Genos banned out by All Business right off the bat, so that opens up some interesting possibilities elsewhere. Still some high priority tanks available. The Khan is available. I was going to say one of the teams is going to pick him up, and All Business does that right off the bat with Genos gone, what are some of your high priority healers? Where would you look if you're on either side here?
Of the wild.
All the healers, I mean, with Genos gone, you usually want Damba as like a supplement. So some people might pick Damba early if they really, really value that high healing, high CC.
Come on, let's fight.
Clearly, Hussars don't really mind. They can play EU. They're used to playing like Ying, Damba.
Sure.
I don't think they mind quite as much. Picking a Nara Ashe early with the triple tank ban strong. Ashe is really good at taking high ground on this map, pushing across. And if you want any tank sitting on point, you're going to want it to be a Nara.
Right.
At least with a main healer.
And they're going to get the Inara. They're going to get her, and they're going to have her just hanging out on the point. There's the Damba you were looking for in this case to get the Leon as well for a little bit of range on their side. We've seen some interesting blasters come through on this map as well. This map tends to be conducive to maybe an Eevee. There's the Ying as well. So maybe an Eevee, maybe a Drogo's coming through. The Hussars in this case have drafted themselves frontliners and a healer. They're going to get one damage dealer here. It's going to be the Imani. But they leave that one kind of flex pick at the end sort of in their back pocket here. So we'll have to see what direction all business goes to see what the Hussars are going to do. They're going to go with the Barrack.
The best point tank left, I would say. Otherwise, like you might have to go down to a Nando, but I think you generally just rather Barrack. The sustain is definitely way higher. Nando's usually like someone's been banned. Yeah. Eevee picks too. I think one of the reasons you would early pick the Leon is to deny them picking the Eevee early-ish, right? Leon is really, really strong into Eevee and into flankers in general. Yeah, Hussars going to come out with a Maeve. This is a pretty common pick, I would say, on... I say that when 6% picker pops up below me. It's a common pick on Serpent Beach.
Probably all 6% are on Serpent Beach.
It's possible. It's possible. Her mobility is really, really strong. Her ability to poke from afar is really good. And combine Midnight with an Ashe dive or an Imani Dragon coming in from this side, they're not going to know what's hit them.
Lots of scary potential coming in from that side. Well, the Hussars, they have a 1-0 lead heading into game number 2. All business will look to bounce back, but only time will tell which team is going to come out on top. Let's send it down to Nick and Gore to get things underway.
A dragon coming out of the Midnight looks like could be a very, very scary combination. I hope we get to see that at least at some point here. One of the best things about this pick, this Maeve, is her ultimate.
Yeah, just again, when you're in a shooter, one of the best things, one of the only things that is almost going to be a guarantee is that you can see Maeve takes that away for 6 seconds, I believe, going through whenever she has Midnight. So it makes it a little easier for her to maybe box into someone like Ineffable who should have the range advantage, or to try and take out someone like this Eevee, because that's going to be the matchup. They're both going to be hovering this side on the beach side a little more often, right around the sundial.
Put it this way, there are two popular ways to cheat in shooters, and that's aimbot and wall hacks. If Maeve takes away what a wall hack would give you, that's how valuable it is. Imagine trying to play with your eyes closed. It's tough stuff. You can mitigate it with resilience, though. I don't know if that's something a lot of people know, but it is classified as a form of crowd control, so it will be mitigated by those cards.
I'll be honest, I did not know that.
There you go.
That is, I learned something new about Midnight today, and that's just one of those things, because again, when you look at it, you don't buy resilience for just the Midnight. But if you're buying resilience here to deal with the seismic crash as well as the assert dominance, all of a sudden it's not as bad of a pickup. And the fact that Blazing Hussars have a good enough amount of CC, you'll just kind of get that bonus fact that you don't have to be blinded as long.
Ooh, big opportunity here. Perfect timing. Anjadoodle plays a decent amount of Eevee himself. He knows the exact timing of that ice block. And it was almost like the daggers were in the air before the ice block even ended, because he just knew when that Eevee was coming out. Hits the bonus damage shots as well. That's all it takes with a Maeve with Cap Burglar. You hit both of those pairs of bonus damage knives, and that Eevee is dead.
And when you're looking at matchups specifically here, why Cat Burglar instead of Execute? There's no need for the Execute. There's only 2 front lines, and admittedly, they should be pretty easy for the rest of your team to handle. You're looking for those boxing matches against a Leon and an Eevee. You need that burst damage, especially if you can maybe even lock away a front line like that.
People take it a lot of times against the Fernando, and Khan is nice to have it as well, but as you see, Anjadoodle plays over the top. And look at that. That's the value of no vision. Closar literally just walked into a wall on accident. Bumps into it, but Doodle, like we said, doesn't need the execute to deal with a Khan when you can just shoot right over the top.
When you just kill him dead anyway.
Yeah, that's the weakness of that Khan shield, though, is the angles you can play around it.
Very small overall. Once you get around it, you can take care of him. And while he's a pretty big boy, but that shield covers him and maybe one person standing behind him, and that's
a very minimalist style shield, whereas Fernando is clearly compensating for something with his shield.
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously a lot. There's a lot of his personality. It seems like he's compensating for something, but we'll get into that another time. I'm actually really surprised that I want to say the quietest thing this game has been the Leon versus Amani. Like, there hadn't really been, like, Amani's on a 7 streak right now, but they haven't really been doing anything crazy, especially after the game Ineffable had last map. Even though the team didn't end up winning, it still was a really good early game for that Leon, and it's just kind of faded into nothing right now.
Yeah, it definitely started to struggle once Andrew started to flank and put a little bit of pressure on the back line. When he was allowed to free fire, that's when they ran into big problems. A big adjustment to make, no doubt, but Andrew this time is playing a dedicated flanker, so he's looking to specifically get into people's faces and try and ruin their day.
The one time you can't get above him when he walks through a doorway. And now you're actually going to watch the bonus damage is going to come around, and that's going to be a clean kill. Again, that ice block is held up, and it's going to be enough to force Andrew Doodle away, and they can follow up with the kill. So that should just alleviate some of the pressure. I mean, it's been like a constant bleeding wound, and they finally get a Band-Aid on it.
We'll see if that's enough to stop the bleeding here. 45 on the defense. Couple of ultimates starting to come online for the Hussars, as well as All Business. Red Serpent only at the 26% mark, so that was recently used. Creeping around now is Kamikaze. Could pop the Assert Dominance if he feels like it, but it would be a big commitment at this point. Might be able to take out this Barracks, falling lower and lower, and Damba's low back there. Kamikaze, this smells like a good dive to me.
I mean, being able to get through, half health on the Barrack right now, going to be able to go up. But I'm looking at the EV health bar right now. It's incredibly low in the icebox, probably dancing around, waiting for the heal, trying to figure out what angle to go in. And that's going to be a good Ice Storm, the good kill onto Graffies.
Great job there, setting himself up for success. Blinks in, misses that second shot, finds the second and the third, but the burst damage from the Catburger knives is just so much. No ultimates used by Blazing Hussars, and they just got the Dome Shield cooldown. They just got the Ice Storm, so win or lose on this offense, they've already gotten some good value.
I mean, they still have the support in both front lines, though, on the side of Blazing Hussars. Like, they have everything they need in order to continue pressuring them out. And an Assert Dominance right back onto the map. You're going to have the immunity and a good position to fight over the payload.
See, Doodle dies there. They're popping Ying ultimates as well. Blazing Hussars, it feels like late in the game decide we want to go for this. And everything we said about the value they were getting from All Business, they've kind of just thrown it away as All Business defends successfully. I don't know. There was such a good opportunity there. I think Barrack was about half HP and Maldamba was about half HP. It must have been that they just hadn't decided they were using ults at that point, because if they were decided, Kamikaze should have just dove in on that and ulted. Killed both of them.
And that's the thing.
Probably could have even stunned them both.
They use the Ying ult. You could argue that maybe it'll charge back fast enough they don't have to worry about it. They use Assert Dominance, but the Dragon was used. I didn't see the Dragon.
Oh, I didn't see the Dragon.
So I'm wondering if that was used, and again, because of the way Amani ult works, you kind of need to keep your own body safe. You can still kill Amani while you're playing as the Dragon, so you want to ult from somewhere that you're like, no one's going to get me here. And a lot of the time, that means you're out of the fight for the first 3 to 5 seconds of flight as the Dragon. I'm wondering if Graffies ulted, and then the round ended, and he just didn't get to use the Dragon at all.
Maybe that. Maybe he got tracked down and assassinated by the Eevee. I'm not really sure what happened. Eevee's got the mobility. It's all about where you see that Dragon come from. You know that it originates from wherever Amani is standing, so that's how you can kind of look to track her down. Big damage coming out onto the Con Shield. Splitting Ice is going to continue to put pressure on this Eevee if she's not careful. Working her way around and just slips up for a moment. Graffies pins her to the wall with a nice little icicle. And
that Frost Bomb is just so good. Giant AoE cripple for the team. Like, you lock down anyone you hit with it. Plus, it does decent damage. And along with Splitting Ice, it makes things so good for an Amani who's looking for some group damage. And it's set up like that, right? You don't even have to get the kill. You just kind of have to open the door for Andrew Doodle.
Well, 99-0. It's been a very, very quiet point because everybody used their ultimates on the payload push last time. Doodle's Mave, though, has been phenomenal, I think. Done a really good job at dealing with this Eevee. He overpowers Zanara. Vicorio didn't account for the Mave that was still there to finish the job. Grab the payload in the name of Blazing Hussars. Now, a new character, Amani. We've talked a lot about her, but I don't think we've touched much on her passive, and it's kind of interesting that not a lot of Paladins characters have passive. So, Gore, what's this little bar on the left-hand side?
So every time she hits a shot, it's going to charge up a little bit. And it does different things based on which stance she's in. Once she's in ice, you're going to, I think for fire, you get an extra shot. It does actually, I think, a big burst, an AoE, when you hit with it. And I think for ice, it throws out a second projectile instantly. So you're coming through with splitting ice. You already hit, as long as you hit one target and someone's close enough, you hit a second. Then you get another shot on top of that. That is going to do the same thing. So it's just a free fire, instant cast bullet.
Nice. So there, you'll notice, you'll kind of see it reflected in the animation when she kind of like double karate
boom,
chops
boom.
sometimes.
Yeah. Kind of looks like Maeve daggers, but with ice, and it only happens once every while.
That's a good way to put it. Commander's grab comes out. 1 kill on the low ground. Ineffable will fall. Glowstar answers back in a big way onto the support. Could get this one as well. Does. Blinks in, claims Kamaker. And like we were saying, the bar, it's called mana and clear casting. That's sort of the way that it works. But it's not, unfortunately, reflected in the spectator UI. It doesn't really accurately reflect how much mana you have. So all you need to pay attention to is every time you see, just like Maeve, I think that was a great way to put it. When you see these kind of double karate chops come out from Imani, that's how you know that that was a clear casting auto attack. And it's hard to account for as an enemy. You move in knowing, you know, I can take X shots from Eevee or Cassie or Maeve or whatever it is. You never really know where Imani's mana bar is sitting, and she could just double chop you for twice the damage you were planning on taking.
And I'm pretty sure hits on shields and things like that would still charge it. It's going to be, you know, most effective if you don't hit a shield with that extra shot. And so it might actually be one of those moments where if you see an Imani all of a sudden just not firing, they might be saving specifically that shot.
You can see struggling to take the high ground right now. Everybody grouped up and tried to push through this tiny little room at the bottom, but didn't happen to work out for them. There's a lot of ways to punish that for Blazing or for All Business. You stack up, you're taking multiple splash damage shots from Eevee, you're taking the big cleaves, or the piercing shot, I guess I should say, from the presences. All types of good stuff. A lot of ultimates available for both squads. Kamaker's going to try to get in there and touch, but I don't know if he's going to make it.
You know, Ashe Flat Cannon does 400 damage a shot. And Maeve daggers do 400 damage a knife on base without any boost. So how hard is Maeve throwing those daggers?
Pretty hard. Or maybe they're just really sharp.
They're really, really sharp or really, really well thrown.
Yeah, she's got a good arc to them, that's for sure. It's all on the wrist, Core.
All on the wrist. Just the flick of the wrist.
Yes, sir. 10 and 5 for the flankers. Klosar and Anjadoodle out in front, but neck and neck at the same time. 8 seconds till this round gets kicked off. Frankly, I've been impressed with both of them. I think they've had good moments. They're running the pretty much hardest 2 characters to execute in this lobby. But flankers oftentimes do, in my opinion, at least take that role of being difficult to execute. They are squishy. They have to move a lot. They don't get to sit back and just shoot for free at tanks.
And your movement is probably the thing that matters the most. I mean, in matchups like this, it is going to save your life because of the fact that everyone's projectile-based, right? No hit scan means it's going to be a little easier to dodge out those shots, and doing so will get you out of an engagement if you are low or in danger. But here's the dragon as it comes through. You see it fly over the top, and it's just looking to burn through any and all members of All Business.
That's good communication because I feel like it's Anjadoodle not killing the Eevee, but saying she's retreated. She's burned all of her cooldowns.
God, that looks so cool.
To back out of this when it does. Dragon, one of the coolest ultimates in the game for sure. And, you know, that's why it's not the safest place to launch your Dragon, but because you have the information that Eevee burned all of her cooldowns to retreat, you know that you can most likely just kind of hop away with that.
And it gives you a little more of an excuse, especially that
Look
close.
at this.
You get immediate value getting onto the point. Right now, you're in the boxing match right now, assert dominance, causing maybe a little bit more trouble for Coriel than he wants to admit. Can't get down to the objective, going to try to jump now, but you've lost 2 members.
Doodle's Maeve is running rampant on Serpent Beach. My goodness gracious, what a phenomenal performance from him. Something we're definitely going to have to highlight tomorrow on Esports Weekly if you guys are interested in tuning into that. It's not necessarily for you because you're here now watching, and that's for the guys that unfortunately couldn't keep up, things like that. It's a fun little show we do every Wednesday to make sure everyone's caught up on both the Console League, the Minor League, and the Premier League. We give a little preview before we hit those week's games.
We also get to look through predictions and stuff for the Premier League because we have some interesting matches this week. I'm excited to talk about, and I've been loving this. Like, watching Blazing Hussars and All Business as they've grown over the last, 6-7 weeks has been impressive to be able to watch this because there was very much of the point at the very beginning of the split, Blazing Hussars, they could not, they didn't play together is what it felt like. It very much felt like 5 individuals that happened to be on a team. Now they have that unification that has really brought them together, which I think is part of the reason they have a little bit of an edge over All Business so far.
A lot of damage coming out from range. Grafis might be able to push up on that Eevee. I wonder if you could make your Frostfire close. There's so many cards to alter it. You could eventually, but with what he's wondering right now, I'm wondering if he could make it over to where that Eevee is kind of playing from.
And being able to go through, he has the 25% faster, so he might actually be able to do it if he wants to. And that's the thing is, and you're not going to be able to get crazy high ground using the dash for Imani, unless you're starting from some high ground and then you work it pretty carefully. But at this point, you're long range, you're kind of keeping everyone locked down from far away. Like, this is where I don't mind seeing Graphias play.
This is where a lot of Imani players like to play. If you've got no ranged fall off, you might as well just slang them from back downtown. And Crossfire Glide is he reading an Eevee Blink maybe? I don't know what that was. But Crossfire Glide is 90% horizontal mobility and 10% vertical mobility.
Yeah,
It goes up a little bit, but not much at all.
But it does look awesome when you do it.
It does look cool as hell.
Get to surf around on some ice. Close right now, though. Locked down. That's going to be the kill they needed. I think getting rid of Eevee opens up this objective a lot more. They can come back to the payload, dance around it. They get a dome shield, and very much like last round, they're grabbing some of the bigger ults that they need early on.
A lot of healing coming through on this. Sonara and William Birkin dies almost immediately after. Overpower is going to be good. Frostfire Glide! Wow! Back onto the map, and Khan just has to watch in horror. She could Dragon from the backline here and maybe get this one going. Look at the payload, though. It's creeping closer and closer. And Hussars is going to look to stand it. There it is. They know they have to stand on the objective. This is the perfect time for this Dragon. Hussars blinks out, though. He's the threat. He's the guy that could assassinate this target. Look at all the damage coming out of the poor little Barrack. He just couldn't contest any longer. Damba's forced to slither in. The Dragon is dead. Grappy S unfortunately falls as well. And the Eevee saves the day. She slays the Dragon. What a performance there to make sure that they stay alive. She realizes we got to pull this problem out root and stem.
And that does come down to specifically Closar going and getting the Imani instead. Because, like, if that Dragon's there, you can choose, well, I guess one of two things. Watch the payload go in or die trying, because that fire is not going to let you live long. The Dragon does immense amounts of damage. But if you have someone like Closar who can get back there, and especially with no one to lock him down and kind of keep that Eevee corralled away, Imani is just a sitting target, and it's so simple for a Blink Sword to just get you in the right position to find a couple of good shots.
Well, that's Blazing Hussars thinking they have that one wrapped up, spending everything for it. Granted, All Business spent nearly everything to hold them, so Enlightenment and Assert Dominance are the only two ultimates going to be available in this first round. Closar takes a very different route. He won't contest Angedoodle. He wants to get down onto the point, put some pressure onto the Sonara. So he's allowed Angedoodle through for free. We'll see if that has any bad impacts.
Well, right now it's going to mean a lot for Xenos, and it forces a little bit of a retreat. All Business tend to group up over here, assert dominance going forward, and now you're just looking to pressure out as much as you can. Ineffable going to get taken down, but Angedoodle lost his life just before. So far, 2 for 1.
A lot of value here from Kamikaze, and Resilience hurting Maldamba, keeping him closer to this Ashe. Kamikaze's killed 2 people so far. He's got a third involved, dancing around the shield. William Birkin finally takes him down. But with that much value grabbed by just Kamikaze, how I feel Blazing Hussars can't lose this fight.
I mean, they're dancing around over here. Angedoodle's back. If he can stay alive, it would make a difference, but he gets burned down almost immediately. And that's one of the biggest things for them, getting rid of that Maeve that has been causing trouble for 3 rounds so far.
Well, Dread Serpent Overpower available here. I'd love to see maybe a rotation from this Khan so we can throw somebody off the map. And Nara potentially is at risk. Not careful. There's the Illusory Rift, though. Everyone with a 600 health per second heal over time applied to them. One more shot will be good. Graphias gets dunked into the wall, and Slaying Coriel will lose his life for it. 1 for 1 so far.
Doing whatever they can right now. No Ying ult available since they just used it, so the healing's going to be a little more paltry than what they are used to. But the ults are coming back up for Blazing Hussars as they go for a seismic crash. They're looking for some kills. Closar gets taken out right at the ice block.
There it is. Kamikaze has to stay out of this fight, though. He needs this out-of-combat region. Doodle onto the objective.
2v2.
Just to try and keep it going. Kamikaze out of combat, starting to heal up. Shoulder bashing in, looking for the angle, taking a ton of damage on his way in. Siege shield goes down. It's the big Castle Crasher style, but it isn't going to be enough. 99%. All Business have been on the back foot all game. But just like in game one, they've managed to flip this one around when it matters most.
And being able to find the kill right here for Khan would mean the most. Get rid of Andrew Doodle, get rid of this Inara. Either way, you get control of this objective. It's a 1v5, and I don't think Andrew Doodle can do it. Overtime
expires, and All Business will tie up the set 1 game apiece. Very similar themes, but just flip-flopping the teams.
Yeah.
One team in control the whole time. When it comes down to the wire, the other one's managed to flip.
If you were able to, on that last push, just a few seconds before, get the kill onto Eevee first, and then get aggressive with the Dragon, then get that kill, that makes a big difference for the Imani. But because they dump every ult into that push, Blazing Hussars just came in with an empty clip.
A best of 5 turns into a best of 3. Let's get it back up to the desk and keep the set moving.
A best of 3 it is. No 3-0 for us here today. No 3-0 for either side. And another 4-3 in the books here. Pretty contested set, as we all predicted coming into it. I know the Maeve and the Imani were sort of some interesting picks going into that. After we saw how they worked out, what were some of your thoughts on the Maeve? What were some of your thoughts on the Imani?
I mean, I thought they were really strong.
Yeah.
I mean, you could see they were really, really dominant. I was even saying, I was like, this is one of the most one-sided 3-0s, 4-3s I've ever seen at first. But I think they committed a lot of ultimates to try to close it out.
Yeah,
4-2.
That's true.
And when it came to the mid, they used what they had, but it wasn't convincing enough to guarantee the wipe. And then when All Business just came back in, it was just unstoppable. And Klosar on defense and on the mids was just an absolutely unstoppable force, completely clutching that 3-2 defense for his team.
Yep, he was the guy who came out. He made the big plays on the Eevee. We thought we might see her squeak through here on this map, and squeak through she did. And a little bit of luck there that Imani goes into her Dragon as he's peeking around the corner. All Business, Blazing Hussars. We're down to a best of 3 now. Again, I think as we all would have expected. We'll have to take a look at what direction Blazing Hussars choose to go with this one. They'll have the next map pick. It is going to be Stone Keep.
Pretty standard.
Pretty standard map pick, I think, in this case. One of the maps that they're relatively comfortable on. Another map where we've seen some Atlas. Another map as well where we've seen some Imani. And the high ground is another big storyline, and this one, similarly to Serpent Beach, the push, maybe not as high ground specific as the last one. What are some things you expect to see?
This map actually, recently, I think in the meta, has split a lot. It's not necessarily like, oh, you gave up keep, you lose. Like, it's kind of how it used to be, but teams have figured out how to play that church side.
Sure.
How to spam the doors, keep them zoned out. I think whatever team ends up with Genos, barring like a double healer sustain with Genos comp, will probably be holding outside. They'll probably be the ones controlling that, poking the doors, and trying to get cap time, more so than the keep-sided team.
I think it's a very fair way of looking at things. Torvald, Makoa, Ash, Khan, back to our frontliney bands. Blazing Hussars, they can take the Genos here if they want. They have the first pick in the books here. Atlas, Imani, both still available. Atlas, would you say he's sort of that, well, I guess they're answering my question, but given the 4 bands, in your eyes, is Atlas kind of that next highest hybrid frontliner?
I think with a triple off-tank ban, it's really strong. Unless you're like, I'm a one-trick Ruckus and I only want to play Ruckus. I think taking it there is pretty smart. All Business with the same response they had on the first game with the Barrack Genos.
Sure.
Trying to keep that Barrack poke strong with the fall-off, and obviously not wanting to get stuck with
my banners,
Inara Genos.
And we see the Leon come through as well, and as we've just sort of been passively talking during these games, Leon has kind of been.
You are not welcome
she's
here.
ridiculously strong. I mean, I don't think anyone needed to be told that.
Oh yeah.
But just seeing how well some of these guys are playing the Leon, it's not necessarily in our eyes maybe like immediate ban worthy or anything like that. But the team with the Leon, you have the top damage dealer a lot of the time in this case. So proving to be one of the highest priority damage dealers in this one. Ruckus Cassie, though, coming out on the opposite side, that's a pretty powerful one, too.
Yeah, Ruckus is actually pretty strong into Leon. Like, Cassie is definitely one of the best DPSs into Ruckus. You know, big game, disengage, like, anything to, like, create distance. She's better at Wrecker than Leon, so the shield goes down really quickly. So picking the Ruckus and the Cassie is basically just to make sure they don't take that, like, Leon-Cassie double backline. Maybe they play outside. Weird comp.
They get the Fury and the Pip, though, on the opposite side, and that's it's a very similar first draft that we saw to the Hussars there on Brightmarsh. They're going to go back to the Fury. They're going to go back to the Pip. But Bomb King, Cassie, Genos, that's a pretty tough 3 on the All Business side. Which lineup are you favoring here?
I think I like the All Business draft again. I think the addition of the Bomb King is really strong. They can try to burst through the sustain. They're just going to want to end the game fast as possible.
Well, hopefully they'll end the game fast as possible. Down to a best of 3. Let's go down to the casters.
High fragging, high flying lineup here for All Business. They have so much damage here. Every single person on this lineup can do big work, especially with that general. It almost doesn't matter. You don't need to think too much about who you're damage amping. Just keep everybody alive and you'll have a ton of DPS.
Get as many marks out as you possibly can. As long as they're alive, maybe you can avoid the Barrack a little bit, but you still got to give him some of the love. But every single person on this team is going to do a ton of damage, which, again, if you're looking to box out and win in a fight against such high sustain, which is what they have going for them on the side of Blazing Hussars, it gives you a little bit more control over the kind of roadmap of the game.
Everything pretty standard in terms of talent selections here. Nothing too out of the ordinary. I think one thing I'm looking at, or a trap that I could see perhaps Blazing Hussars falling into, is that if they run 2-2 down to the objective, I think they're just going to get steamrolled in any type of 4v5 fight. They need Inara's tankiness to make sure that All Business are slowed down at least a little bit.
And it's going to make the big difference right here in this kind of boxing match, because
what a jump.
Andrew Doodle can keep himself alive, but he does have cooldowns. He still has to dance around. Bomb King, these bombs are always going to be doing damage. He doesn't have to wait for the cooldown. Because of that, it sets them up for turning into a 4v5.
Choreo makes a beautiful rotation. Closar as well, just chunking his way through the high ground. It's easy for the King and for Ruckus. There's just so much damage between the two of those characters. 69% to nothing on the objective as well, with a Barrack versus a Barrack Genos versus a Nara Solar Blessing Furia on the point. Are you kidding me? How did that come out in the way of All Business?
I mean, it just comes down to how long does that beam last versus how long does the Luminary boost last, right? Like, that beam's going to be good, but the minute it's gone, it means nothing for your health. And I think that's the big thing to look at, is that's essentially immunity and a centralized immunity. If you stand in this pillar of light, you will not take damage until it's gone. And then once it disappears, all of a sudden, you're vulnerable again.
A big thing about our impressions and ideas of Solar Blessing was without Big Game. I will say that when Solar Blessing was in the meta, Big Game was not. So now that it is, most of the time that Inara, and this can honestly hurt Inara, when she's CC immune and doesn't get knocked away, it makes it easier for Cassie to land the follow-up Big Game shots, because even if she's CC immune, you still get the buff applied. And I'd be curious to see, and I'm sure we'll see it at some point this game, Cassie, if she can just chunk her way. And what does that look like? Even with like a COT 2, if she doesn't have the CC immune, then you disengage her out of the beam, and then you've cauterized her entirely.
And that means good things. Nothing but good things for Ineffable. Very early on, similar kind of, I want to say, performance to what we saw in Game 1. Very strong as a kickoff here for All Business. Although they're going to have to take a little bit of a reprieve, a little break as they pull back. There were a couple of shots there that didn't quite find their marks. The Blazing Hussars were able to regroup. There's still a minute left. Stone Keep, there's so much time to play with. And at this point for All Business, very similar to what we had seen a couple of maps ago. If you get a couple ults, if you can have them burn like the Evil Mojo, burn an Inflame or something, you can leave with that. You don't have to convert.
Yeah, 47 seconds left on the clock, and we'll see who burns what, because almost everything is available at this point. Ineffable kind of by himself, though, struggling to take this high hallway. Nobody really helping him out to do that. Normally it would be Ruckus or something like that to try and force his way through. Jeez. Finds the magical pick, though. If Angedoodle can't respond quickly, this is going to be rough for the defense.
I mean, they're already getting aggressive. Beautiful Seismic Crash, though, stops the 2 DPS from All Business from getting anything done, at least for a little bit. But there's a disengaged shot into Coriel's Hexafire. They're going for the push, and so far they're looking like they can find it.
Doodle might have an opportunity here, shut down by Xenost. As long as that Atlas shield remains standing. Ineffable keeps hitting good shots onto the high ground as well. These DPS players that think they're safe just aren't. All Business with one of the first conversions of the set.
And solid lockdown coming down there as well. Once you got to a certain point, Inara's Toot is in this area of, I can jump down there. But I just saw how fast that Atlas got melted. Yeah, I'm Inara. Yeah, I'm going to have a little bit more healing, but there's also the fact that Surets was forced back into base. Surets couldn't come up and heal you the same way. So knowing you're going to die if you jump down, not exactly what you want. But again, you can take solace in the fact that you got to burn a few ultimates on the side of All Business in making that push happen. Unfortunately, You burned your Inflame and your Seismic Crash. You still have a little bit to play with, but those are two big ones to lose early on.
Evil Mojo should be enough to carry this fight, and despite everybody picking up Resilience, I think it should be enough to get at least 1 or 2 kills. All Business played very aggressive in the first round, and they weren't exactly punished for it, so I don't expect them to try and fix that if it wasn't broken. Scout popped vision for everyone. Ineffable just wanting that line of sight on Leon, but he's not going to get it.
Coriel, once you get Coriel in a good position to be aggressive, he's just going to be in your face. It's going to be so good for this Ruckus. And, of course, between him and William Birkin there on the point on the Barrack, there's a lot of aggression from this all-business front line, let alone if you look at where Cassie and Bomb King are going to be fighting, right? If they win an ace fight, it is a snowball. This is an entirely snowball-y composition, and it is working perfectly for him so far.
And again, man, with the Solar Blessing and Nara, Blazing Hussars are not playing the objective. I'm looking for them to look almost like Na'Vi here, where they're just abusing their ability to stand on the objective. All Business go ahead and grab it. There's got to be something to why they're not.
Yeah.
It may be Big Game Cassie is really just too much to stand still against on the objective.
Honestly, Big Game Cassie plus a Luminary Bomb King, or just Luminary Big Game Cassie. You don't even need to add the Bomb King into the equation. And Nara does not, like, that health does not matter. Your, like, health numbers, your damage, all of it's pretty much negligible at that point because you will take 2, 3, 4 crossbow bolts and be gone forever, well, for a few seconds for your team. But in the moments where it matters most, I think what you were saying earlier is, you know, if All Business, essentially, if they lose one of their front lines, specifically the Barrack, all of a sudden it should be super easy for Blazing Hussars. But if you lose the Inara, you don't really have anything.
Yeah, it's tough, man. Let's pull up the objective time chart before this game potentially ends. I want to see, what has this Inara been able to do?
22.
Nothing.
Oh, wow.
And you look at 169 is probably mostly point cap time, because you look at 75 is a lot of Genos pushing the payload and Barrack being up and available for, you know, help and creating space on this offense. So definitely a struggle on the objective here. Blazing Hussars not able to get too much done.
And there you're seeing Furia even going for her beam.
That's her sister.
Up there, yeah, no.
Keep it in the family.
You could see it, yeah. You can see the resemblance sometimes. It's the blonde hair streak that Furia has.
How about the new bunny skin for Saris with no blindfold?
With no blindfold.
The Playboy bunny.
Potential canon face.
You know, we have Genos. Smite has Janus.
Do you think that's what she was doing before they...
Have you seen that Nuwa skin? It's like...
Oh, yeah, no, it's like the exact same.
They could appear in the same edition of Playboy that month.
The Smite magazine that'll come out.
Yeah, Smite and Paladins crossplay in a whole new way. Gives meaning to the word. Ineffable finds the first kill of this engagement. Closar finds the second. Xenos finds the third. Everybody's getting involved. Laser beam in his spawn. King Bomb just chilling, deciding where he wants to go. Doesn't matter. All Business slam it home. Grab themselves a very convincing. It looks like Leon overslid. She wasn't even dead. She overslid the objective and out of contest range, and the payload went through.
That was also that moment of, like, well, especially once the Bomb King dropped down, it's like, do I walk back there? Like, I'm just going to die in 3 seconds if I go over it. Maybe not even 3 seconds. But it's also kind of surprising. I mean, after 4-3, 4-3, that, like, not necessarily long, grueling matches, but, I mean, very contested, just 4-0 out of nowhere.
Well, I think what makes Na'Vi special is they can pull comps like that, and they can just play the objective, be negative across the board, and it's not as easy as it looks. Let's get it back up to the desk and hear what they thought about just the lack of objective pressure that game.
Back-to-back 4-3s become a 4-0 in this case, and All Business, they win their second straight in this case, and it looked really good. We talked about the Feast or Famine Furia in this case. It's a famine.
Yeah, it was a famine game.
No feeding.
There was,
well, except for feeding kills.
Yeah, I was going to say, when they were pushing the first capture, the first beam, I think, missed the Inara because she got bursted through by the BK. Next beam, they killed Kamaker through the beam. They killed the Atlas through the healing. So this is what I was saying by, like, the addition of that extra burst damage to their composition, bringing in the BK with the Cassie. That's how they were able to kind of... They just didn't give them time to get those beams. They didn't give them time to settle. Since they were outside poking into the doors, they couldn't come through. This Ruckus adds even more damage pressure. Just a very, very strong play, I think, from All Business.
No, they definitely looked great while doing it. 4-0 here on Stone Keep. And I mean, there was 90,000 healing coming out from the Fury. If we're just going to look at raw numbers, so it's not as if Furia wasn't there doing some healing, but it's just sort of the play style that sort of permits in this case, going in the favor of All Business. And Genos, at least in this graphic, 23 streak on that one from Xenos. A little bit unfortunate there for Kamiker. We got a good laugh out of that one.
Even
but
if
All
you catch a
Business,
beam,
right.
you can still fall off the map.
That's right. There's no saving just falling off the map. You can't heal through that. Ascension Peak, though, is where we're headed. Potentially the final game in our first set. All Business, they snag a 4-0. So momentum on the back of a 4-3. So now they've won 2 straight, make it a 4-0 in the last one. So big momentum rolling into this one for All Business. This is a map, Ascension Peak, caters well to the Drogoses, to some Bomb Kings maybe in this case. We've seen some Atlas on this map, though, as well. Do you maybe expect that to come through?
I mean, I expect Atlas almost every game. People are just kind of getting the hang of him.
Right.
You know, like they had that week or the week and a half to
That's
like
true.
scrim with him, get used to how his cooldowns work. Khan, I still think though, is
higher priority.
His ult is just so influential. His ability to sustain through a fight is strong because like you can screw up a rewind on Atlas.
True.
You can't really screw up a battle shout. Like if you press the invincible button and that goes wrong for you, something else is going wrong.
There's something else wrong. Right?
Yeah, something else is going wrong beyond that. Leon Atlas, though, I think strong picks for All Business. This map is very wide.
Yeah.
So having characters like Atlas, who has that pretty strong lack of fall off on a slug, plus Eminence and Leon being an absurdly long-range damaging legendary, I think a good start for All Business.
And I'm intrigued because after in one of the pre-game interviews, we talked to you about the difference in the 2 main Atlas talents with Deja Vu and then the massive wall option that he can throw up. On a map like Ascension Peak, there are a lot of nooks and crannies for multiple rewinds, but we have seen the massive wall option come out in this case. What are your thoughts on the 2 talent choices for this one?
I would think it depends on the enemy composition.
Yeah.
I think if they have like a sniper or like a very pokey composition, then I think you might roll out with a Temporal Divide.
Right.
Use that to just gain ground, get closer to them. So now, like, oh, our range was really good, but now it's kind of irrelevant.
Right.
That's one of the ways you could deal with it. But you could also, if you're not really worried about them poking you as much, like with the Eevee, you might not, like, since they only have Cassie Eevee, you can kind of avoid the Cassie, push the Eevee lane. They can run Deja Vu, just have him lock down that one side.
Right. We'll have to see how they choose to go here. The Hussars have all 5 locked in. All Business now have all 5 locked in. Genos gets banned out, so he's not going to see play. Do All Business have a lineup here to take their 3rd game and take set number 1?
I think I like All Business's comp. I like the burst damage from the BK plus the flank counter from the Leon, and they're going to have some trouble burning through that in RSRs.
I think it's going to be an interesting one to watch. Backs against the wall here are the Hussars. They have a pretty good lineup, though, as well. They grabbed themselves the Khan, so they'll be happy with that first pick. But like I said, All Business 1 game away from taking our first set of the day. It's time to see how it plays out, and it's time to go down to your casters.
Thank you so much, gentlemen. Ascension Peak loaded up here. Don't get to see this map too often, so I'm glad we get a chance now to take a ride along with the boys on the wild side. Not a lot of Amani, I gotta say, between these 2 teams today. I'm surprised a little bit by that. But Atlas, however, has appeared to be that sort of catch-all pick that everybody's running.
And this time around, looks like he's running Temporal Divide, or at least he has that right now. We'll see if he keeps it as they leave the base, but that is going to be the one of the 2. You've seen a lot of Deja Vu, which makes it a lob AoE for the rewind. This makes the wall big. How many times bigger? It just says many.
Several.
Either way, it's just, it's large, and yeah, there you go.
There's the big boy himself. First blood, Choreo grabs it. Closar grabs the 2nd blood. Eevee under some trouble now. Into the ice block, out of the ice block, charging up the Chrono Cannon. Can't find the kill, though. I just wanted to say Chrono Cannon, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, it's a badass sounding weapon, honestly, like Chrono Cannon. And it comes through. And again, I love looking at Atlas because I think there's so much about him that's unique. Obviously playing around with time, but also his gun, just being able to look at, I'm going to burst fire, try to get all this damage on you when he was up close to Eevee to, okay, now you're flying around, let's see if I can get this headshot, because the 900 headshot puts him up, I think I've seen it hit 1350 normally, which is a good chunk of damage.
93% and climbing. All Business might just get the go-ahead capture here. Shotgun blast from the Chrono Cannon here. Big damage on the Barrack, and it's enough. Ineffable cleans it up. Graphies trying to rotate in. 2nd chance, get some good healing. Stasis barrier, should I say Temporal Divide. It's not even the same ability at that point. One more shot from the Chrono Cannon. Corio's able to grab the yet another kill. This man is actually kind of fragging, and not just because I want to say the name.
And you know, the one follow-up that I'm sure for anyone who hasn't seen any Atlas play or is wondering why, with Timbora Levide, why it's so massive, like what's the drawback? It does add to the cooldown, so it takes, I think, a time and a half overall for the cooldown of what it used to be. So every time he throws up that wall, he's risking, what, 21 full seconds afterward of just not having it. With a full Chronos, you can get that back down to its original cooldown around 15 seconds, but it's just so long
Too
to wait.
expensive. Yeah, people don't really buy high levels of Chronos outside
Especially
of
on the
sports.
front line, yeah.
Yeah, you got to get your records, you got to get your powder, especially because Wrecker can be so damn good on this guy, to be honest. Scale incredibly well. Like you mentioned, you always hit for that 900 damage. It's just whether or not you can connect every bullet. And you can see, you don't even really need to charge too much of this gun up. Look at that headshot onto the free target. The Cassie and the Barrack across the way, too. Back-to-back 1350 blasts from what?
The Chrono
The
Cannon.
Chrono Cannon, brother. All business. Send it all the way home. 2-0 lead for the boys in red.
That was clean. They have one death that entire round, and it's going to be on Hussar, who admittedly, again, when you're looking at the playstyle of all of the champions, probably the one who's most likely to find himself in a position to die, just because of how aggressive he needs to be. Still not going to be able to, like, you can lob those bombs pretty far, but most of the time he's pretty close, like close mid-range is the way I would describe it, where he's not shotgun blasting your face, but he does have to be pretty nearby to make sure those bombs connect. And of course, Corio making a huge impact, 3-0-6. And while he's not the highest damage, he's still on the top 4.
He's close. I mean, I have to say, you know, performance almost be damned. Atlas, I don't think I've ever seen him crack like top 5, top 3 in the end of a game. Like even when Diggy Dog's been really like positive 13-0 or some shit at some point, he really hasn't been near the top of the damage charts. This character kind of like blows you up. He gets in your face, blows you up quickly, or he's hitting a massive headshot from downtown, and that's kind of it as well. But look at this, the response from Blazing Hussars. 3 kills very, very quickly, and they go back on the offensive with fast cap. This might be over.
I mean, this is like what you need. You have Grafies come in, he gets a couple kills, and then it's a 3v5. It doesn't matter if it's Grafies performing for the rest of the fight. You've done what you need to. Inara can touch down, but again, assuming some big game shots come through, that is not going to matter too much. 590, it's not a big number compared to Inara's health bar, and actually because of the pressure on William Birkin, or the lack thereof, they're going to be able to keep overtime.
There it is. I don't know if that was entirely necessary, but Kamikaze just wants to use it, I guess. At this point, making sure it's going to go their way. Inara has done a good job keeping this one contested out. Atlas is struggling to get back onto the objective. Kamikaze making sure of that. Setback, just to draw some space. Dome Shield, Dread Serpent. Things are flying. Ultimates are trying to land here. Doodle finds 2 critical kills. A double kill. I cannot believe all business are working their way back into this.
I mean, holding on to overtime this long for this well is not something you do often. It does look like it's going to end right there at the kill on Decorial. But I mean, that was impressive considering that admittedly should have just been a lost fight immediately.
Yeah,
the fact that they held on for, what, 30 seconds there is just solid from them.
They had an actual chance there to take that one back. Inara using her innate tankiness just to make that happen. Big heals from Saris, I'm sure, as well. Keeping everybody nice and healthy and happy. 2 minutes now for this offense. Blazing Hussars need to match the aggression. They need to match this conversion, though, because letting a defense happen and getting a point on the scoreboard is one of the better feelings. When you know you're up that 2-0, you're not too upset about losing this payload, because comeback mechanic it's a very easy excuse to make. It's like, we had comeback, they had comeback mechanic. There's nothing we could have done. It's literally impossible. Just get this defense, and you still get a point on the scoreboard. It's always something that helps mentally, I think. You play well after losing a payload.
Andrew Doodle in the unfortunate scenario of rewound. It was funny to watch an Eevee go backwards in time, just because you see all the silly movements that Eevees make, but
I like because they get stuck in like stalled, a funny animation too, like Makoa especially because he's so fat. He just like puts his little hands up and just like getting rewound. It's a really funny thing to watch for sure.
So all business start this defense pretty well, I would say, for what they're looking for. A minute left to try and push over 50% of the way. And it's all, well, literally an uphill battle for Blazing Hussars to try and get this going. Because of that, you have to pay very I mean, a lot of attention to the payload. Fighting like this on the side doesn't get you anywhere, but at least getting a kill on a close arc can open the door.
Atlas and Barrick dueling it out and switching targets. Corio wants Grafis instead. Nice job with the target swap there. Doodle has to rotate over to confirm the kill. Anara's some pressure, but she'll be just fine. So we think. A lot of healing coming through from this Ceres. Let's look at the healing charts and see how the Ceres has been able to stack up. Very neck and neck here between Ceres and Damba. Tail as old as time.
I mean, being able to keep up. And what I believe was actually originally very heavily at the start of this round in Ceres' favor. So Maldamba being able to pump out healing this time around this just goes to show why his team is staying alive through these engagements. He's just putting out more. Ceres, she can do a lot, but she can't heal everyone.
Inara's going to do her best. Need to dance around this base. This is one of the better bases to defend from. Ceres just in and out of the spawn door, trying to keep Inara healthy, but there's too much pressure. Blazing Hussars will tie up Ascension Peak, 2 points apiece.
And now you come into it, and this is going to be the question for Blazing Hussars. You got 2 good kills from Grafis earlier on, and, well, he only has 3 to end the round with. Can he do it again here and make the big difference, or was it comeback mechanic that helped buy them that point with what he was able to spend early on? So dancing around that objective might end up working well, but they put pressure on Corio, and that's the one thing I've seen. The way to kill off or to deal with Atlas, as dumb as it sounds, is really just burst him down really fast early on and either make him rewind out of the fight or kill him after the rewind.
Yeah, if you're holding a position, you go back, X amount of seconds in time based on your loadout. If you're really just holding a little position, your second chance is only going to heal you. It's not going to actually, give you better positioning. You're not going to retreat to safety. Beyond the Veil here, a lot of people running this card. Pretty much everyone, just movement speed. Look at that, the King Bomb through the Beyond the Veil. It's rolling through at 1,000,000 miles an hour, simply too fast to deal with, but the frontliners are able to trade out the kill. Nice dome shield there to keep Barrick safe through the seismic crash stun.
And the card you were looking at is going to be that Continuum Rift. The second chance sends you right now only 0.4 seconds into the pass further, so not too much further overall, but it might give you that little window you need. Unfortunately, it's not the window that all business need. They are getting burned down. A nice rewind might save your life for a little bit, but Corio still burned off.
Blazing Hussars putting their foot down and taking control of Ascension Peak. 60% grab, no fast cap this time, so all business will likely have another chance to get back in here. A couple members from Hussars zoning out, and we've seen this is where, defense or zones can go to die. If somebody gets picked when out trying to slow down the defense or the offense, you can really put yourself in a rough spot. And Nara struggling to W key her way back on the objective.
I mean, just trying to get up there, trying to be healthy when doing it. The wall's about to come down, and she'll be able to walk in, but it's only going to be her. Everyone else going to get pushed away from a beautiful Dread Servant. Ineffable does lose his life off of it, so Closar, a little more pressure on him to perform.
There it is. The stun on a Kamikaze is good as well, but the bombs aren't enough damage. There's so many people, so many members of Blazing Hussars still alive. Closar swinging for the fences, but Blazing Hussars just starting to pop back to life.
And you get that moment, right? You see what Bomb Kings want to see. I 2-tapped the Eevee. Unfortunately, there were still 4 people who were looking at you, and it's enough to feel good for that one split second he was alive afterward. Might have been able to go into it. Actually charged off the King Bomb in that engagement, so could have gone in if he had been able to live just slightly longer, or if he had slightly more healing behind it. But against Ceres, and that's actually, I think, where a lot of all business might fall off. This is a very, very good, aggressive, we're going to get you in 4. But once you start going to this longer route, there's just not enough healing around the table for everyone.
Once this pressure started coming through, I mean, all business really started to fall apart. And it's tough to say that was a fluke. That was almost where I wanted to go. And we'll talk about that in a second, as this payload could be going through, so we want to make sure we're following along. 133 on the clock. Convergence goes out. We're fine. Small pull on the Kamikaze. Here comes the King Bomb off the top rope. It'll get 1 at least. The Ice Block's going to keep Eevee safe for a time, but there's a decent amount of follow-up damage there. 120 on the clock.
And it's right there. I mean, it's a sneeze away is the only way I can describe it. Like, you could, I guess, trip, accidentally nudge the payload, it'd go in. And it's that awkward moment, that awkward spacing when you're a defending team where you start to rush, you start to scramble. Like, you kind of lose all coherence of this is the way we wanted to mount our defense, and you're just like, get on the payload, stop them from doing whatever. And because of that, you'll see ults come out. Maybe you'll see someone kind of step one step out of position and end up losing their life because of it. So things can get sloppy around here.
I wanted to say, it almost feels like, based on the way the rest of this game has gone, that first round was a fluke. But it's hard to say something was a fluke when the offense and the conversion happened so convincingly as well. Like, that initial pick happened very, very fast. The second and third kills happened very fast in the first round. So that's why I was like, well, they got some pretty... Maybe it was luck. Maybe it was a fluke that they were able to get those kills and just dominate. But the fact that they went on to kind of dominate the offense as well and get that quick conversion, I just don't know who's really in control of this game. It feels like it could go either way.
Especially with All Business just having a 4-0. You think they'd be in the driver's seat for it, but it's not going their way right now. Closar immediately burned down. Andrew Doodle on the high ground with the carries. Does jump down, but he's in a good spot because no one's looking at him.
I don't think you need to waste healing cooldowns on somebody who's actively entering a spawn door. You know what I mean? Keep these on the frontliners. Keep them alive. Xenos taken down by the pressure from the low ground. Closar might be the last hope for Ascension Peak. William Birkin, lower and lower he goes. Down he goes. Temporal Divide is going to keep Ineffable up for a time, but one more shot from Toot's good. The Dome Shield is ready if they need it, and they don't. Blazing Hussars bust back and force game number 5.
And honestly, that comes down to first off, that's their map, so of course they want to be successful on it, but I mean, just really stellar round 2, round 3 initial fights to get control and lock down Atlas. Atlas won, I want to say, that first fight for All Business. So the minute they knew how to just deal with Coriel and shove them away, it opened up the door for them to come in, move into the point, brought their recliners, they got the new TV, like they're set.
Well, it's going to be game number 5, guys. Let's get it back to the desk and hear who they think is going to take it all.
We talked about today being contended. So I think a game 5 is not out of the realm of possibility, and we're starting off, well, with a game number 5. And these two teams have gone toe-to-toe, and we've honestly seen, like, the widest spectrum of possibilities here. Like a clean 4-0, a clean 4-0 on either side, like a 4-3 that one team squeaks out. It's really just been very far back and forth. I mean, the standings are literally mirrored for these two teams. So we're going down to a game 5. We're going to see how it all plays out. Did you have any takeaways? What were some of your thoughts on that previous game?
I noticed one thing that that Hussars were doing on the last mid was that, well, sorry, the second mid, they were just kind of ignoring the Inara Ceres and putting pressure otherwhere because they're like, yeah, the Inara's alive, but it's Ascension Peak. This point is so wide. We'll just plant our flag on this one side. The Inara, like, well, you can do whatever you want. You're gonna get a bajillion healing. We'll deal with what we need to deal with, and then we can take care of you.
And worked out in their favor, at least in that moment. Tutu, though, 16-5 on the Barrack, back to some of his roots. We've seen kind of the resurgence of Barrack over the past, I wouldn't say this past week, honestly, it's been almost a season-long thing that we've seen where Barrack, Lazy, I think, was the first one that we saw really bring it out. We're going to see it here again. 4.3 KDA, I mean, scraping, knocking on the door of 100,000 damage on the Barrack. And I think that's the play style of Barrack that we've seen and why he's been sort of high priority. I mean, you're able to do almost a DPS amount's worth of damage, and Tutu did just that.
Can you believe he's getting buffed next patch?
You know, I can't, and I'm excited to. Well, it'll be interesting to see how it plays out because, I mean, the front line, the hybrid front line, kind of as we call it, and honestly, the front line pool it's in a diverse spot.
Yes.
So would you say, with the buff numbers, that I guess we don't really know until we see how it plays out.
Of course, I mean, he's still going to see play.
Does that push him up?
I think he'd be in about the same spot. I mean, he's still being played a ton.
Yep.
You know, and people are even like arguing, like, is he better than Inara? And you know, contending with that position is crazy. But a map like Frozen Guard, the point tank, it really doesn't matter who you have as much. I mean, they can both do well on the point, but it's going to be a lot about like long range rotations and getting burst targets if someone overextends a little bit on one side.
Just there's lots of play style opportunities on a map like this, and it just depends which way people choose to go. Leon has a pretty favored pick on this map. Essentially any map anyway. I mean, Leon's a preferred pick anywhere. Atlas is going to go away as well as the Khan. So that leaves you the Inara, the Ashe, the Barrack as well. Fernando potentially coming out. The Ashe is going to be highest priority in this case for All Business. Hussars still have some to play with.
Not too surprising, I think. On this map, she can cover so much distance with her ultimate, and now that one of the main counters, Atlas, like setting back, like she can kind of do like that YOLO ult again, where she just bashes in and immediately is just mashing E like as fast as you can. She can actually do that again with Atlas off the board.
True, and with Atlas and with the bans going the way they are, Genos comes back out, banned out last game, but Barrett comes back through as well here. There's the Leon we were looking at here.
She's a great backline for being able to get aggressive. Yeah, I think, but like she's definitely better at hyper pushing than like Cassie or Shaw. Shaw's like the best like counter dive, but Leon's really good at getting in, because if she does manage to get her ult on a dive, then you're basically absolutely confirming that target's gonna die, and you're gonna keep your advantage. Inara and Barrack.
Inara and Barrack. I mean, that's a strong front two there. Genos, though, I know you've had some interesting thoughts on sort of how the Inara Genos works. We saw Inara paired with Furia, which is, of course, we say feast or famine, but that can refill the Inara bar very heavily. Inara's going to have to sustain long amounts of time with the Genos. Barrack is pretty good at doing that. Do you like the Inara paired with the Genos in this case?
Inara and Barrack, I mean, I think what they're looking to do is just not let them into their backline, and they're going to use their delay cooldowns to just make the fight go too long. Like they're gonna use their delay cooldowns is gonna let their backline damages burst through the aggressive tanks. But the pickup of Nando by All Business is gonna kind of counteract that. They're picking the Maeve to maybe like Straight Justice execute the shield, but the Nando's Immortal will be able to say, all right, well, yeah, use your DR. I'm gonna die. I'll ult. You know, nothing you can do can stop me, and now we can make this fight as long as we want it to be with our sustain comp.
Well, both teams have sort of picked into each other here. The Imani coming back out in this case. Genos, Barrack, Inara, Cassie, Maeve on the opposite side. We have a game 5 on the books for you here. Both teams taking a couple off each other. We've seen 4-0s, we've seen 4-3s, we've seen 4-2s. What will we see in game 5? Well, we'll have to wait and see. We'll have to send it down to Nick and Gore to hear from them.
As we load on into Frozen Guard, there's a chance for anyone to grab this one. This is a cool map because not because it's frozen, but because there's a lot of different kind of fun picks you can see here that you don't necessarily see on some of the other maps in the pool.
Now, I would actually argue, I would have used to say Maeve is a Serpent Beach is like Maeve's #1 map. I actually wager that this is up there with it, based on what we've seen out of the last week in the PML and the PPL, out of the last few weeks through these two. She makes a very big difference, especially in this kind of matchup, specifically against a Leon and an Imani. Gives her maybe a little bit more potency to get into the backline and deal with these high damage DPS.
And against the Fernando, that's one of the matchups we talked about being pretty solid for Maeve early on. And you'll see why, hopefully. But it is Cat Burglar again, so not worried about the execute. Maybe just a style choice here for Doodle. He is very, very good at hitting these auto attacks, so when you're good at that, the only thing that's keeping Maeve, you know, from being one of the best characters in the game is how hard these autos are to hit from a distance. If you can just sit back and always be connecting with people, then I'm sure you'd play a lot more Maeve too. 66 on the point though for Blazing Hussars. Kills have kind of slowed down here. First Blood's even fallen. I actually don't know if First Blood. There it is. Finally, Doodle picks it up
a little bit
at 140.
Not quite as long as the first game, but after everything we've seen, kind of what I expect between these two teams. God, that damage is just so much. With that boost, you're hitting for 1,040 if you hit both daggers. I think you get 2 sets of them, so you can hit up to 2,000, which is good to kill off a Leon or Imani, or just make Fernando kind of regret all his life decisions that made him end up on the other end of those daggers.
There it is, a struggle for All Business out of the gate. They haven't drafted any flankers themselves. It's double backline Leon and Imani, putting them up on the ice wall. And what's scary, Gore, is that's where they wanted to be. They had what they wanted, and they still couldn't win.
And there was virtually no pressure. I mean, it took 1:40 to get First Blood. There was no pressure onto them. That's not where Andrew Doodle was looking. He wasn't trying to find that fight. He was looking at the front lines. He was fighting elsewhere on the map. So that was even with them kind of being able to free fire as well. It's not a, okay, I got to look at the point and look over there. It's just, I'm shooting the front line. This is my job. This is all I have going for me. And they still make it look good doing it.
Seismic Crash whiffs there, but Doodle and Grumpy S are going to keep things moving. It's just an all-out snowball. Closar finally slowing things down, taking out Andrew Doodle. He'll be able to sit up on the high ground here and plug away at his underlings as they grovel to get inside of the base. 128 on the clock, and he's got a Cassie under him. Drops for it. Big opportunity here to hit some presences, but he misses. Everyone? Come on.
That's hard to do in that kind of scenario. I don't think there was anywhere you could freeze frame that screen, and there's maybe like
that's like
2 spots that you could hit that don't hit anybody.
That's like taking a shotgun and shooting fish in a barrel, missing all the fish, blowing out the bottom of the barrel, and all the fish escape. That's what that man just managed to accomplish.
And that's what happened, too, because everyone kind of walked back. It was enough to buy space, though. Whether or not it looked good and was effective doesn't necessarily matter. They get what they need. It's just a little room to stop this payload, which is right outside the base. But this is a notoriously difficult area because it's so wide open. I mean, you can't touch that payload without being seen. You're going to get noticed trying to get there. Unless, say, you're Eevee and you're up against, or Envy and you're up against Kanga, and I guess you're Eevee because you're able to slip through. But that was a completely different kind of scenario. All Business are not going to leave this high ground.
There it is, double kill, Ineffable. Able to kind of sling a couple of icicles across the way, finds 3 now. Feeling pretty good about that. And on Frozen Guard, there's not likely to be much of a contest left. Frostbomb won't contest. Let's Doodle die. Wait, hold the phone here. Little Barrack looking for the back door as he's on the objective. Mave's here now. Unless he commits a Dome Shield, though, he's going to be in a tough spot here in about 3 seconds. Only 500 HP left. 1 icicle from Ineffable is enough to do the deed.
Surratt's going to be able to get the kill on Ineffable. Unfortunately, you lose 2-2 and Andrew Doodle. You get an Enlightenment that just clips a block, doesn't even get any of the damage done. And the payload's still technically moving forward. Inara's still living around and dancing exactly the way they need to. They get in the assert dominance as well. Like Blazing Hussars, you don't even need this to go in. You've won this fight.
Yeah, that's good value. Here comes Barrack, but not enough time left. 2 ultimates for pretty much nothing. So we saw this on Serpent Beach, but this time around, the Hussars don't do what they did on the beach, which was spend everything in return and equalize the bank accounts.
They come into this, 4 ults still ready. And my eyes are probably going to be on Scout early on, because that one always comes out at the beginning. But in conjunction with probably a Midnight to come through, which is going to set up some pretty scary moments overall for All Business. Even if you get the wall like you had last time, you won't know where that Mave is coming from. And it might cost you your life if you're not paying enough attention, especially if you're on the point, when you can have maybe a Seismic Crash come through, or if it goes 99-99, look at that Dome Shield to make a big difference.
Blazing Hussars, a lot of ultimates to work with here. Here comes the first of what will be many. Big Fear comes out on a Doodle. They want to lock him down, and they will. They're going to lose 1 for it. Imani's in a tough spot here. Goes for the Dragon, Immortaled, so they can make sure they can get some value out of this, but people are breathing down her neck. She Frostfire glides out to safety. Not a ton of value for that Dragon, if I'm being honest.
No, it came up, and while it was being channeled, or the minute it stopped spawning in, it was almost instantly dead. They were shooting it. They were ready for it. They were waiting. And admittedly, that Immortal doesn't come through. That's Imani instead of the Dragon. That's going to be her dying earlier on, and Ineffable not going to get a lot of utility from the Dragon, not going to get a lot of utility from the life afterward either. So that Immortal buys them time, but I think it just delayed what was Blazing Hussars' push.
Kamikaze was 10% HP, getting a little Genos trickle heal. And instead of sitting on the objective and getting out of combat, healing up all the way, he just walked out into Leon and died. That was a rough one to watch for sure. Blazing Hussars in the lead still, though, 51%. And climbing. Inara now respawned, working her way back to the objective. Doodle working his way into the backline to see if he can get something going.
He's already kind of dancing around. And there's the one that, again, no damage fall off on these shots. Andrew Doodle, though, going to get caught off in the backline, not able to accomplish anything. I mean, this game, or this round, he's just been locked down, but luckily he's bought the space his team needed. 87% picked up for Blazing Hussars. There's going to be another Jet Serpent coming through. Does connect onto 1 with the Assert Dominance. That'll be a stun and a kill. But they're using a lot just to get a little ground.
A lot of crowd control being used here. Seismic Crash to try and bring this one back. Stunning out Fernando. He's not too worried about that. Doodle rotates his way in to try and get the touch, but he'll lose his life for it. All Business. Looks like they may have just earned themselves a payload.
And that, admittedly, was kind of sloppy from them overall. Like, it was the kills onto Andrew Doodle that I think gave them as much room to play with, because they didn't have to worry about the Mave anymore. Once Mave's out of the equation, all 4 other members, they're still threats. They're going to do a lot of damage. They can take you down on their own, but they're all in front of you. You don't have to look around. You don't have to change where you're aiming. You can just say, look, all I have to do, especially as an Amani, is stare straight at you and just hope this connects as best as possible, because then we get that shattering ice, it bounces around, and everyone's happy.
Everyone's a happy little camper there. Blazing Hussars grabbing a couple kills here on the defense. There's only 150 on the clock, though. All Business aren't too worried about these deaths. This is just good time. You can go home, spend some of the credits that you earned from grabbing this payload. Maybe look to advance some of your items. William Birkin goes into Rejuvenate 2. A lot of credits to be spent, though, on this All Business side. So look at Xenos with 1,300 in hand. He could grab a Chronos 3, but we don't always see supports do that, as you see Surrett's branching out a little bit.
And it's just, Chronos 3 is expensive. You had mentioned it earlier, Xenos has the credits for it, but
Wicked expensive.
You invest 1,200 to buy that, and so that would leave him now with 200 left afterward, which admittedly isn't going to buy you a whole lot. You can get a couple of things here or there, but if you want to invest in it, it's worth it for the cooldowns on some champions, but sometimes it's just nice to get, maybe start going into a morale boost. At this point, you could essentially get morale boost 3 right off the bat.
Coriel diving into the back line to try and get involved on the Ashe. He'll grab himself a kill, but it'll lose his life for it. 52 left. One more shot from the Tinkering Rifle will do it. 2-2 puts Amani in the dirt, or I guess the snow, I should say, as we are on Frozen Guard. Game number 5 between Blazing Hussars and All Business. It's not often we see these minor league games go the distance, but these two teams have improved and ebbed and flowed over the course of the phase, and they have really turned into a nice match for each other.
And again, yeah, the last time these two were up against each other, Blazing Hussars won 2-0. So the fact that All Business is holding up into this shows their growth as a team. And it also shows a lot from Blazing Hussars in terms of what they've passed maybe through the region. There's a couple of kills coming in right now. Andrew Doodle, I want to say a quieter round this time than we had previously, and I think that was a big part of why Blazing Hussars are right now just looking to tie this up 2-2.
That's definitely true. A lot of sustain coming through from the Genos immediately. And Klosar puts a bunch of damage onto the purple-haired Street Scavian. 4 and 8 now. Doodle's Mave slowing down in a big way. He had a great first little fight, grabbing himself first blood. A little pressure on the second and third bloods as well, but now just a different story. I don't know if it's just Coriel with this, what looks like, I think, slug shot, making sure to keep the pressure high onto Doodle.
Well, one of the good things about Ashe, and one of the things that has kind of had her maybe in the scene as like a counterpick for Maeve, like well, quote-unquote counterpick, is just that when Maeve's jumping around, same thing kind of for an Eevee, you can hit her pretty easily with Ashe. It's not a very difficult shot to make, and because of that easy connection and low health bar, it makes it a little easier to burn them down overall. Make it so that your DPS doesn't have to worry as badly, but that depends mostly on the pathing Andrew Doodle takes, as well as where Coriel's paying attention, because if you can turn his attention to something like a Genos, all of a sudden your Maeve is safe.
Oh, didn't get the stun, blinded out. Quick resilience will mitigate most of that blind. 45% for Blazing Hussars. Doodle trying to stay alive here. Needs to go give his tank some peel. Couple of good daggers landing, opening up Barrack to maybe grab this kill, and they fail the body block, the shoulder charge. A lot of distance making out of there. Nara doing a good job mitigating most of this damage. Somebody got to kill the dragon before it kills them, and Graphies is up to the task.
Finds the dragon, keeps himself alive, and maybe in an interesting position. They lose 3 members, though, right now. You can still be alive, but it's not going to mean a lot.
Wow.
Very good shots from Klosar right there. Clean that one up like a broom. And now he's sitting around on the point, not completely cleaned up. Didn't mop as well, just made sure to sweep through whatever was left.
Well, I think overall, All Business do a good job of adjusting their round 1 strategy and not just sort of sitting still on the ice wall. And now they seem to be rotating around and getting involved. Staying involved, really.
The question is if they can find a push. Neither team so far. Actually, no, the first 2 points.
They have
Blazing
a pretty
Hussars.
good comp for it, would you say?
Yeah, honestly. I mean, if you're looking for a team that can pick off, especially when you're looking at the base, long-range area for the second half of this push, someone who can knock Maeve off of the wall, knock Cassie off of the wall, and bring them either down to your level or make them hide from damage, it's going to be the Amani and the Leon. So there's a lot of potential for All Business. They can just put that little bit of pressure on. then it will open that door. But it's getting there, I think, initially. That's going to be the difficulty. With a minute and a half, you have to go through 2 corners and 1 choke under an arch to make sure you get to just the last area, which is so difficult.
There it is. A lot of damage ripping out from Hussars right now. He finds 3. They stack up, and he knocks him down. Beautiful stuff there, and the power of the presence from Leon shown. And that's not something that's going to change. If you hit multi-targets, even after the nerf, you're still going to get your full reset. I feel like what we're likely to see happen is people go less into the heal on presence card and more into the elim on, or CD on elim card.
Yeah.
So that they can still, at least if they get that kill or elimination,
full reset.
Basically a full reset. And that way, if you're killing somebody with your presence, it will still feel like that full reset like the old times.
And I mean, based on what we're looking at,
a lot of sustain, which is important.
Sure.
I mean, that's a big chunk. It's like most people running at 400 right now. You're getting 2 or 3. Like he just got 3 presences off in that fight. It's 1,200 heal.
On top of that,
pretty good, man.
I mean, we were talking about the fact that earlier, you know, Hussars is actually in a scenario where he didn't connect. He was just off the mark from being able to hit 2 to 3 people right on this map. And that's the difference it can make in a fight. That's the difference it could have made then. And while they were able to still push off Blazing Hussars at that moment, it opens up so many scenarios for your team to jump in on, to be able to say, look, now we have 3 different paths we can take to try and get this payload in instead of the one that we had before. And it does start with a couple of kills.
Overtime is going to ask a lot, I think, of the offense at this point, especially with Cass just teeing off. Thousands of damage coming from the top rope here. Thousands of damage coming from the bottom rope as well as Doodle continues to stab and prod his way to victory. Blazing Hussars grab the defense, and it's going to go all the way to 3-3. Every ultimate has been saved at this point. Big damage numbers. A lot of people starting to pass 6 figures, and Inara is actually in that conversation of top 5 as well. Big enlightenment here. Here's the nice little play from Hussars. All of these front lines stacking up to try and dive in on it. But he's the one that will come out on top.
Well, surprise, surprise, the set's going to end the same way it began. 3-3, where it's all tied up. Now 2-2, so whoever wins this point takes the entire set. And that is big for either of these teams. Again, both of them at this point, especially with their negative 13s, are still tied in the standings. This map, this point, will determine who can take that lead.
3-3 now. Taking the ice wall. Leon want to control that. Seeing how many people have come to contest it, though. Hussars just,
it just turns
Homer Simpson's right on out of that contest. Doesn't want anything to do with that. William Birkin making sure he holds it down. Objective seismic crash will come out to the dome shield. The Immortal, it's all flying left, right, and center. William Birkin will not survive. Neither will Doodle, though. Makes it a nice even 1-for-1 exchange. Coriel slams down after killing Doodle. Helps take down 2-2. Big root there on to Graphies, and it will be solely Kamiker that is left to contest. He's double killed to the wall. Hussars immediately, without hesitation, moves out to zone to make sure these people get knocked off their horses and can't come back with ease.
Honorary mention time, 29 streak for the Moldamba.
Sheesh.
He has just not been dying overall. Xenost is sitting back on the point doing his job, and he has a little bit of protection making sure he gets there. All business just play that point. I mean, picture perfect.
Yeah, well done there. A lot of value for that Immortal. I think despite going down, William Birkin gets a good amount of defensive utility under the dome shield, under the seismic crash. The laser beam might have clipped him in the head as well. He definitely had a lot asked of him there.
Yeah.
That was a nice kind of crescendo, nice end to that one. We're going to go ahead and get it back to the desk and move on to our next set of the day.
Thank you, guys. Set number 1 is in the books here in all business. They find themselves 2 straight wins. Take it in this case over the Blazing Hussars, and it's a very contested set. It was very, very close across the board. It looked like, honestly, it could have gone either way. I mean, a 3-3, that's on a knife's edge there at the end.
Yeah, exactly. I think all businesses comp, once the ultimates were online, kind of exposed the Hussars comp on the other side of the board. Once their ults were just making the fight go longer, not letting them end it immediately, it just kind of punished the Inara Barrack Genos combo.
What are your, we've seen Maeve now a handful of times today. What are your thoughts on sort of Maeve in general? Does she work in specific situations? Is she kind of a plug-and-play sort of champion at this point?
People are just, yeah, I think so, on certain maps or like with certain compositions, right? Because some people are realizing the value of flankers. You know, Eevee was the only one people were playing because they're like, well, we have this incredible Eevee, so it's going to be really good. But just having this character that people are running her with the damage reduction build that they used to, finding out how well that Cat Burglar pairs with Genos, giving her, you know, this insane like 1100, 1150 burst.
Right.
You know, hit all 4 shots, you're insta-killing a squishy target. You know, it really can bring a lot to the table. And at this high competitive level, executing off of the Midnight, it really just makes her a very flexible pick, I think, in a lot of situations.
And I like seeing her come through. I like seeing some of the flankers get a little bit of play, getting to come through here, but it is all business who are able to steal the win in the first set here. And when we're looking at the standings coming into the day, I mean it's like 6-1 and then a 13 map differential, 6-1, 13, and then 1-6 minus 13, 1-6 minus 13. So I mean, despite losing here today, I mean the Hussars are still technically within 1 win and 1 map difference from tying things back up. On the backside of this upcoming break, though, we are going to get to see the opposite side of this. We're going to get to see Penta in their first game under the new organization. We're going to get to see Sour Team as well. So the 1 vs 2 matchup, I mean, they're technically tied. So maybe 1 vs 1 matchup in this region coming up right after this break.
Brought by Skillshot, Hi-Res Studios, Evil Motion, INAP, SteelSeries, Respawn.